Okay, so in this video, I'm going to be talking about something a little different. It's going to be about a topic that I'm very interested in and have done a lot of research on, which is happiness, right? We all, if you ask most people, what do you want to do in life or what goals do you have? A lot of people in some way will say something that relates to happiness, right? I want to be satisfied. I want to be able to achieve a certain goal. Why? Because it will give me satisfaction, which is related to happiness. Even if you ask people, what do you want for, say, your siblings or for your kids, they will usually mention happiness as at least one of them. But the interesting thing is that there are loads of factors that make chasing happiness very difficult. Okay, which I've aptly labeled for the sake of this video as the four horsemen of happiness. Okay, I'm just going to dive straight into it. The first one is hedonic adaptation. Okay, this is probably the biggest one. Hedonic adaptation is this idea that we adapt to changes in our circumstances such that it doesn't achieve the lasting level of happiness that we expect. Okay, so when you get a promotion at work, you might think that now that you've got, I don't know, £1,000 extra in disposable income every month, that you're going to be really happy. But what you realize is that very quickly you adapt to that new lifestyle and it becomes that new set point where you're just as happy as you were before. And if anything, if you went back to that old lifestyle, now you will be slightly unhappy for a period before you then adapt. Okay? That makes things really difficult because when you're thinking about, I want a big car, I want a nice house, I want to do all of these things, and you're thinking it's going to make you really happy, the reality is that it won't. Okay? There are multiple mechanisms that underpin this. One of them is obviously neural mechanisms. It makes a lot of sense because the way the brain thinks about happiness is it uses it in order for it to guide how we act in order for us to maximize our survival and reproduction. So it will give us happiness in areas that it thinks is going to cause us to have an increased chance of survival and replication, in order to encourage us to go along that path. Okay, so historically, finding a fruit and then being able to eat it, that's going to create some happiness. The pursuit is going to create some happiness as well in order to encourage us to do it. However, once we've achieved it, there's no reason for the brain to continue to make us happy because we've achieved it now, right? It wouldn't want us to just be in bliss forever. It wants to then hang another carrot, right, for us to then chase the next thing. The same is the case for things that make us unhappy, right? If you get into an accident and something happens, you often will firstly experience pain at the beginning and you realize the consequences of it. It's quite bad at the beginning, but then you adapt to it. Just as with anything else, there's no reason for the brain to continually make us unhappy after a negative event if we've already internalized it and learned to avoid the consequences of that in the future. The second reason is because a lot of the way that happiness works is that it's not what we actually get out of something. It's more about what we get out of it versus what we expect. Okay, it's called the reality minus expectations model. Okay, so essentially, if reality, to put it short, if I'm expecting something to be okay, like let's say there's an event that I'm going to go to, and I'm not too excited about it. I don't think that it's going to be that enjoyable. And then you go and it's amazing. You're going to get a lot more happiness out of that than if you thought that this event was going to be crazy good, i.e. the expectations value is really high. And even if you actually enjoyed it, it might not be nearly as enjoyable, okay? I guess a lesson from that is that we should always have low expectations of everything because then everything will be more enjoyable in comparison. Now, when your life circumstances change, your expectations increase, right? And so what that means is that obviously your reality improves, but your expectations also improve by just the same amount, meaning that your overall set point stays the same, and you don't become any more happy than you were before. Another reason why this is it's very interesting. They've done this study where they looked at global happiness values across the world. And what they expected to find is that the first world countries would have higher rates of happiness than the third world countries, right? The conditions are much better. But what they found was that was not the case, okay? Part of it is explained by what we've talked about already. Another one is because of social comparison, okay, which is another factor. So a lot of how we compare how happy, the way we decide whether we have it good in life or not is we compare to the people around us, okay? So, for example, very few of us are appreciative for having clean water in our homes. And the reason for that is that everyone else has got clean water, so why should I be happy about that, right? Again, comparison. And they've done studies, for example, where they look at two groups of people. One person who makes 100,000 in a company where everyone else is making 150,000, versus someone who is making less money, say 90,000, in a company where everyone else is earning 80,000, and they realize that the person who's making 90,000, so i.e. less money than in the second case, is actually happier because compared to his group, he's making more money than in the first group. So social comparison comes in as another factor. And of course, everyone in the first world country is going to have, to some extent, similar life circumstances, so the comparisons are going to be the same. And obviously, as you elevate in life, say increase your salary, move into a wealthier neighborhood, your social circle also changes, right? Wealthy people tend to interact with other wealthy people, and so on. Like, you tend to mix with people who are similar to you. And so what that results in is your comparison group goes up, as well as you going up, therefore you not being able to appreciate how your life is actually much better than it was before. So those are all some very interesting mechanisms that essentially make happiness very difficult to attain. I'd like to make another video where I talk about some of the other mechanisms that not just make happiness difficult to attain, but also makes it very difficult for us to evaluate whether we're happy. And then I want to talk about some of the ways that you can overcome them as well.